Hey guys, welcome back. We are finally going to start on my 1986 Mustang GT. We're going to be swapping it over to a manual transmission because, why not? This is what it looks like when you get a transmission shipped via UPS and the guy has to walk it all the way up your walkway. Well, those are some big boxes. What does this one say? Drive shaft. All right, let's see what's in the big box. Cut it open, maybe with a butter knife. Try to. Fail miserably. Let's see, where's the front flap? There. Get underneath it. If you guys ever need to do this yourself, check out the guys over at Neo Mustangs down in Ashtabula. I say down because that's south of me. It's probably north from almost everybody else. So we got an LMR box, which is probably some fun stuff. Got a bunch of bags. Got new trans support. Got feels like clutch cable in there, probably. UPS box. More good packing. That feels like a flywheel. That's heavy as hell. I got pedal assembly, third pedal, and then this is the bell housing in here. I can feel that. So let's open up the other box and see what's in there. Got clutch alignment tool, pilot bearing, some grease, a couple other things. So everything we need to finish up the clutch. Let's see what's in the other big box. Okay, last remaining box. We got wire harness, shift boot. Don't know what that is. We'll figure it out. Inner boot for inside the car. And let's see what else we got in here. Another the transmission mount, which I already have a nice one of those. All the bolts we need, all labeled and bagged. A nice little kit. Let's take a look at all the stuff we got. Got our clutch fork, bell housing, trans cable, pedal box, drive shafts in there, all the kind of interior stuff and bolts we need, cable harnesses, that sort of thing. We have our transmission mount, and then under here, this is the flywheel and the plate, the splash plate between the engine and the trans. And then behind that, we have actually got our clutch disc and pressure plate. So pretty much everything I need to do a manual swap on this guy. Got the final pieces here. Let's try to figure out how to open this thing up safely. Looks like this line. So one of the first things we need to do is get the pedal box out of here. And that involves disconnecting it from the brake booster, and probably there's a throttle cable up on the top. What I'm going to do is look at our 3-pedal setup and figure out exactly where everything bolts in from there, and then we can look at it, start taking it out inside the car. All right, so I got these all off, but you definitely need a set of long extensions and a swivel to make this work. Otherwise, you have to take probably the whole drive shaft out, or not drive shaft, but steering column out, because it's got to go up and inside like that to get to that upper right bolt, and then you got to kind of wiggle it in there and get it off. And if you get it right, you'll have just enough room here to loosen it up. So if you're ever doing a brake booster or a pedal replacement on this thing, do not attempt it without some extensions. You'll be in pain. All right, so under the hood, the brake booster itself right here, the studs that are on the brake booster go through and actually mount up to the pedal box. So what I'm going to do is take off the main booster cable from the vacuum manifold and then slide it forward just enough so that there's no more studs going in, and then the pedal box should hopefully drop straight down, and maybe I can get it around that frame post or that fuse box post without having to actually remove too much else. All right, well, there's one more 9/16 nut up there. It's kind of hard to see from here. I'm kind of trying to shine the light on it, but that is what's still holding it up. And I think once I get that free, I should be able to get it the rest of the way out. All right, so you can see I had to drop the drive shaft anyway, because up underneath here, both these little bolts here, and then on this big ring that holds it in place, those both go to the pedal box. So now I gotta take the sleeve off so I can unplug some of the wiring, so I can drop it down enough so I can pull the pedal box out. It wasn't too tough. It's all 9/16 bolts to get that done, but more than I thought I was gonna have to take out to do this. I got all of the wiring out and got some freedom up in here. The problem is that up in here, man, it's hard to see. Let's see if I can get the camera on it. It's back behind there. It's right there. So this bracket that holds in what it looks like to be the fuse box is underneath the pedal box. That's actually a bolt that's connected to the pedal box, and that's holding it in place. So I'm gonna have to take this panel off, which means I have to take this panel off so I can see in there a little bit better. Luckily, this is pretty easy. It's just a couple of Phillips screws up at the top on either side, and it flops down, and I'm hoping that this panel's pretty easy too after I do that. I've had this problem a few times with this car where everything seems to go in a certain order, and like doing the radio in this thing was just the biggest pain in the ass in the world, because basically I had to take the entire dash out and pull it away from the firewall to make that work. And I'm starting to think that I may have to do that again to get this stupid fuse panel out, because this is one molded piece all the way down, around, up, and over to the other side. So I'm gonna see if I can maybe loosen it up enough to get this off, or maybe see underneath there a little bit better. But man, always a little bit tougher than what you think. As is typical, I have made a huge mess of this. You can see the pedal box is kind of on its side and out of the way, but there is no way that's coming out of there without me taking the drive or the steering column out, which means I gotta go to the U-joint in the engine bay, probably just zip off the U-joint friction bolt, and then, or set nut, whatever the hell it's called, and then yank, and it should come out, and then this whole thing should be done. We're gonna wait until I got some friends here, because down there is where the drive shaft or the steering column is, and you can see I got my impact hooked up to that, and it went down, and I actually was able to zip it off, but it's a bolt with a nut on the bottom of it, and I need a friend to get down underneath to hold the wrench on the bottom, or hold the socket on the bottom while I zip it off the rest of the way. So I'm gonna take a break for a little bit, come back another day.
The following Thursday.
So I did have to take my dash out to get my speedometer cable out. So I need to get that out so that I can get the clutch adjuster cable through the same place in the firewall. So this is pretty easy. It's just 4 screws in the corners there. These 2 little clips that come out, and then the actual speedo cable, which I already pulled out. So if you're doing this yourself, here's the speedo cable, and it actually goes through a grommet right there. You can see the big hole right there in the firewall now. So if you're doing this yourself, that's how you do it. It's just a simple pull-off grommet, so nothing too crazy there. You just yank it. Yeah, here we can see the 2 pedal boxes next to each other. So here's the automatic one, obviously, and they pretty much line up exactly the same. There's a sensor over here on the side, which I don't know what that's actually for on the manual one, but we'll read up on that and figure it out. And then this mechanism is exactly the same, and then the clutch itself, you can see mechanism is over here, and it's a cable clutch. So that's how the clutch pedal works. So now we gotta throw that back in the car, but I want to make sure that I understand how everything goes together before I do that. I didn't actually film taking out the center console. It's pretty easy. There are 2 screws down in here that go right through the ashtray section, and then there are 4 screws inside here, right towards the back on the ground, that go into this little plate here. And then there are 2 screws in the top right here that have to come out. That allows you to flip this thing over, lift the e-brake up, and lift it out. I didn't even unplug the cable plugs in the back because they're kind of a pain in the ass to get to. I didn't need to. I just lifted it out and slid it to the side. And then the last thing you do is you take this plastic centerpiece out. That just pries lightly from this side, lift it up a little bit, pull it forward, and then you can rotate it out over the top of this. Then these are so rusty on mine that I couldn't get them out. Normally you'd take this off and then take these 5/16 out underneath it so that you can get the whole thing out. But because these were so rusty, I actually just took the 5/16 out on their own. This one's still captive by the device, but it's actually out underneath. And now I gotta go underneath the car and disconnect this guy from the transmission. Once I do that, lift it right out. All right, so here we are underneath the car, and here's the linkage from the underside. There's two ways you can take this off. You can undo the two screws here and undo this little ball catch, which is probably what I'm gonna do. Or if you're feeling a little more ambitious, you can actually take it, and if you trace it around, you gotta come down here, drill out this rivet, and then bring it all the way around here to the side, and this is where it connects to the transmission, which is the transmission shift selector cable. In my case, I mean, I eventually have to take this off too, but I think it's gonna be easier to just take those screws out and take that thing out and see what happens. I'm not gonna be able to shoot this with a camera. There's no way in hell I can actually get a camera up there while I'm doing it. So you're just gonna have to use your imagination that I'm able to do this. Now that that's all out of there, should be able to just kind of yank it up, maybe. Why aren't you coming up? Shouldn't be anything else holding it down. Maybe this, is that screw still captive? That one's still captive. Gotta undo that one first. Yanked it out. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that we're holding it in from the top, and now we get a pretty good look at the back of the transmission. So everything in the interior is disconnected. Pedal box is put back together. Now we just got to trim out some of this steel here, which I'll probably do with a sawzall or a trim saw, or maybe a cutoff wheel. We'll figure it out after I trace it, and then we got to put a new box on top of here, and then we're pretty much done in here. I may leave this until I get the transmission out of the way so that the new one can get in and be in place and everything like that, so I'm not bumping into it when I'm cutting in here. All right, the first thing we got to do, because I'm just going to leave the motor in, is unbolt the trans, which is way back here. Not easy to get to. There's a few bolts, and I think I got to take this off the firewall as well. If I remember correctly, when I was actually putting this in and getting the trans bolted up to the motor. So we got a little bit of work to do there. All right, it's been a few days since the last time I actually took any video of this. Got quite a bit more done. So first thing, got the trans cooler lines disconnected, and they're running down into the trans. Got the entire interior trans tunnel removed, and you can see trans is not really in there anymore, and that's because I have managed to actually drop the transmission and separate it from the engine. That's awesome. Now, one big problem was I used my trans jack with these new quick jacks that I got, and this is the first time that I've actually used the quick jacks. And unfortunately, I can't lower the trans jack far enough now to actually get the transmission out from underneath the car. So I'm gonna have to do some creative engineering to actually remove the trans jack so that I can actually remove the transmission. All right, so here's my plan. I've got the transmission down there. Yep, you can see it there. I can slide it back pretty far. So what I'm gonna do is take this big old ratchet strap, and I'm going to tie that around the transmission, and then I'm going to suspend it by a 2x4 from the tunnel, lower the jack out of it, and then I will use my low profile jack, which is somewhere in this trash pile of a garage I've got right now, and then hopefully we'll be able to lower the transmission out, pull it out the front, and get it out of the garage. So let's give it a go. You guys missed actually the funniest part, well, saddest part of this entire thing. as I was trying to tie that ratchet strap around, I decided not to run the camera just because I thought, oh, this will only take a few seconds. And while I was doing that, I managed to knock the trans off the jack into my drain pan, spill entirely everything out of the drain pan, have that run all over my garage and create a giant mess. The good news is that, well, the trans is on the ground now. As is typical of my half-baked ideas, this is what we're left with. A transmission on its side, fucking fluid everywhere. Oh my god, what a pain in the ass. This is why you want a real lift if you're gonna do this stuff, because wiggling around a transmission in an inch of play is just a pain in the ass. I gotta figure out how to get it out of there and clean all this transmission fluid up. Great. Are you kidding me? And there we have a transmission. Man, what a pain in the ass. Here's our brand new T5 sitting right next to our, well, relatively new AOD. I just kind of hate automatic transmissions. And I might give this thing a fresh coat of paint too before I sell it. It's only gonna cost a couple bucks. You can see where some of the first coat of paint just flaked off, but that's a story for another day. Big thing here to notice is how much more substantial that AOD is, and just the amount of weight difference. I mean, if you look down from the top, you can see how much wider the oil pan is and the valve body and everything like that. They're about the same. I mean, there's probably a 1/4 inch or so difference in actual length, and that's why you probably have to use a different drive shaft, which I do have. But yeah, if you ever were curious what the two look like right next to each other, there you go. So one of the last things I got to do is get these transmission cooler lines out of here, and they are stuck up underneath there pretty badly. There's no way to get them out. I don't know how I got them in there. I must have put them on with the motor and the trans connected, because there's no way in hell I'm getting those out without lifting the motor up. So I got to take the motor mount bolts off and then hook up my hoist, lift this thing up an inch or two, and they should slide right out the front. All right, so we've got almost everything done. The only thing left to do is take the flex plate off. That's just a few bolts. You never want to reuse the flex plate bolts, so take those bolts, throw them out when you pull it off. I'm not actually going to video that because it's kind of a pain in the ass, and it's pretty dirty underneath the car. We can see the transmission fluid from my last little screw up just leaking all over the place. I think I might try getting the car out of the garage, lowering it, rolling it out, cleaning up my garage before I start to do reassembly here. So that's probably the end of the video for today, and I'll check you next time. All right, so I lied. There's no way I was going to finish this project up today without actually taking the flex plate off. So we're just going to hit it with the old Ugga Dugga. It's kind of hard to hold this camera and do this at the same time. I don't even know if this is going to work. Ow. And there we go. No more flex plate. 100% disassembly complete.